Welcome everybody, this is Denny with Why Is This True, and it's been many months since I've done a video for Why Is This True. I've done a lot of work with Get Wisdom over the past several months, but I have not done anything for Why Is This True. Now this video may end up on Get Wisdom, but that's another story. Right now I want to introduce Michael Hara, a good friend of mine and supporter of not only Get Wisdom, but also Why Is This True for a long time. And we had a great opportunity to meet each other in person in near Chandler, Arizona, where you live. And so I want to welcome you to Why Is This True? And I want to take some time for the benefit of our audience, just for you to introduce yourself, whatever you want to share about you, about how you found us, what you hope to cover today in our interview. And so thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Denny. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share. And I found you on YouTube. Why is this true? I don't know how long ago that was. It was when you were just getting started with Karl, I think.
Okay. So that would have probably been back maybe 2017, somewhere in there, or maybe late 2016, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right. And it's because I am very familiar with the MAP videos and YouTubes out there, and you would have people on. I'm real familiar with that literature, all the, for, I don't know, probably been 8 years now at least. All the mind control, all the MAPs,
And just
following lots.
and just so everybody knows, MAP is an acronym that we use called Mercenary Army Program. Most people are going to know that term by the Secret Space Program.
Right.
And so
right.
that's when Michael says MAP, that's what we're referring to.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I've been up on that body of kind of what's out there, especially on YouTube. And I really liked your interviews that you did. Those were amazing. And so and also for myself, I have no reason to believe that I've ever been involved in that. But for whatever reason, I believe these people. They are telling the truth, and I don't know why, but I've read it and I believe it. I've seen it. I totally believe it. But there's nothing in my family history or anything that gives me any reason, no memories, anything that makes me think I was in it or have been. I really don't. Doesn't seem like I have. And then you started having Karl on, and I come from a very fundamentalist Christian upbringing.
Okay.
And that's been a really important part of my life, ever since I was a teenager. And then, I eventually got married and was married, ultimately it was 11 years, but during the last part of the marriage, I went back to school and went to law school. And, that was a 5-year. I had to finish up 2 years undergrad, 3 years for law school. And then I got extremely sick right after graduating from law school, taking the California bar. I got super sick, just incapacitated completely.
Wow.
Gut problems, just in total pain all the time. And, the law school was stressful on the marriage. So my wife, we were kind of like soulmates. We were really happy together. And I think she just couldn't handle it. And, I was focused on myself, trying to survive.
Yeah.
Trying to stay alive. I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened to me. And so that was the end of the marriage there. And I'm just stuck on my own trying to get well. Okay. And lost the whole career, the whole plan, everything that I was planning. And, that was a lot of work and a lot of planning. And we were seeing a great future, and boom, it all just blows up. And wow. I'm sick. I couldn't get well. And I tried 7 different doctors. I found the best alternative medicine doctors I could find at that time. And the other thing is, too, I was very sick as a kid. I was the sickliest kid I knew all through grade school. I missed typically 4 to 6 weeks of school with respiratory infections, taking, pharmaceuticals by the handful for allergies and asthma and, infections. And so that's how I grew up, right? And
yeah.
By the time I was in high school, I knew what kind of drugs I needed. I was so familiar. I'd drive to Mexico and load up on all the drugs I know I would need. And as long as I would if I felt something come on, I would immediately start resting and take the drugs, and I'd be okay, right? I wouldn't get sick.
Okay.
So that's kind of I grew up dependent on pharmaceuticals and doctors. Okay. And then in law school, what happened was the pharmaceuticals quit working on me the last year of law school. And my mom had had her second cancer at that point in time, and she had a colon cancer was her second one, and she had surgery for that. He took out a third of her colon, and she did a year of 2 different kinds of chemo, which almost killed her. And my brother also, for 10 years prior to that, my younger brother had chronic fatigue syndrome, severe chronic fatigue syndrome, to where he couldn't even care for himself. He could only have the energy to take a shower once a week. That's, because the energy level that it would take to do that. So my mom cared for him for all those 10 years. I was, at that time, going back to school. I was married, going to law school. I knew my brother was a good guy, and I never doubted him, and I just thought, man, the doctors don't know what to do for him,
Right.
And he took all the medicines, went to all these testings, and they could never do anything to help him get better. So my brother had that sickness. My mother had her second cancer. At some point in time, after her year of chemo, she started reading books about alternative medicine. And I, of course, was in my last year of law school at this point in time. And she started reading these alternative medicine doctor books, and she said, hey, you ought to try to read these. And so I started reading them, and I'm going, you start reading them, and they go, hey, pharmaceuticals aren't going to the root cause of any kind of illness. All they're doing is covering up symptoms, and you're going to be sicker down the road, and that's what's causing all the cancer and all the problems we're having. It's not out. And of course, like I said, the drugs had stopped working on me. The drugs I had depended on all my life, it's like they just stopped working that last year of law school. And I'm scrambling, man, because I got sick a couple times, and especially with a respiratory. When you have a respiratory infection, you can't breathe, my lungs would like fill up with mucus. That's what it happened, like in hours, man, in one night, And I knew, like, that's when I would hit the drugs right away, and it's, the pharmaceuticals, and they wouldn't work. And I'm just going, what do? I got to make it through law school. I can't afford to get sick here. Yeah. So at that point in time, I had started reading the books my mom had suggested, and I'm going, that makes sense to me, And so I went to in L.A. I was in L.A. at UCLA School of Law, and so they had really good traditional Chinese medicine there. There was a school near there. I went there, and those guys gave me these herbs and acupuncture. And, I had to cook the herbal tea in a clay pot on the fire.
Yeah.
But it worked, man. It worked 10 times better than any drugs I'd ever taken, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I switched and said, okay, I am never doing drugs again in my life. I will never do conventional doctors. I will never do that again in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is after my mom found out, hey, chemo has no evidence behind it proving that it works whatsoever. And the suffering that she went through for that year of chemo, man, it was sickening. So, at that point in time, the whole family's like, we're never doing conventional again, ever.
Right.
And so that's what happened. So then I made it through law school. The traditional Chinese medicine got me through law school. Graduated, took the California bar, and boom, I got sick, man. And it was some gut thing that I'd never had in my life,
Yeah.
And it wouldn't go away. Like I said, I tried the 7 best alternative practitioners I could find here in Phoenix, did everything they said for like a year, I would try one at a time, right? And I spent a year doing this, and that, it didn't help, man. And so I finally started going to the health food stores, reading the little books about juicing, and I'm going, my guts are in constant pain no matter what I eat. Maybe I ought to try a juicer, right?
Yeah.
So I bought a juicer, and it's like I could get nourishment in my body, and I didn't have to have solid food passing through my GI tract.
Yeah.
Because honestly, what it felt like whatever I ate, and these guys had me on all these, elimination diets and all
Right.
allergy diets and all this stuff. And man, it's like, okay, what do you do when every single food you eat hurts?
Yeah.
I mean, it felt like whatever food was going through my GI tract felt like battery acid passing through my GI tract. It just felt so inflamed and so painful. And I was thin as a rail. I mean, I'm already a thin guy, and I was really thin. And I started juicing. And so the juicing is like, whoa, I can get nutrients and I don't have to have food passing through. So then I found a book there at the health food stores called the Gerson therapy, where they put them, cancer people, on nothing but a juice diet.
I know. I'm very familiar with Gerson.
So I bought myself a Norwalk and so I'm going to live on juices, man. I'll be okay. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
And I didn't know they were doing Gerson therapy down in Mexico. I didn't know that. He died, you know, he wrote the book and then died. And then his daughter went and, you know, was down in Mexico doing it. I didn't know that at the time I did it. I just found this juicing schedule, 13 juices, you know, 1 every hour through the day. And I said, hey, I'm going to try that.
Right.
And I did it. And like after the third day, something hit me called a healing flare-up. He writes about it in there.
Yeah.
And I had that, and what happened was I had pain in my colon that was unbelievable. It felt like an operation happened in my colon. And I hadn't eaten any meat for like a couple weeks prior to that, and I don't think I'd had any solid food for a week.
Right.
I had this healing flare-up. My colon hurt like crazy. And after you do these coffee enemas when you're on Gerson therapy.
Yep. Yep.
So at some point, I started doing a coffee enema, and there's no fecal material coming out at all, okay? Because like I said, I didn't have any solid food passing through my system. I did a coffee enema, and these fleshy nodules come out after doing the enema. You know, the enema.
Right.
And I had like half a dozen of them. Like if you cut my finger off, my thumb at the first joint, about that big.
Right.
They had roots on them. They were like gristle, you know, like beef gristle.
Yep.
And I'm going, what?
Yeah. What's living in me?
What the heck is this, man? And I had no doctor to help me because I'm like, I'm just doing this thing out of a book, and I didn't know anybody's even doing this today.
Yep.
And I'd given up on the doctors being able to help me. I'm stuck in this apartment in Santa Monica by myself, feeling like I'm dying, man. Because when you have a healing flare-up, a real serious healing, when you do the full strict therapy like I was doing, you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah.
That's your body goes into this, and that's when he said this would happen at periodic times on the therapy, and it would kill tumors, and tumors would fall off of people's bodies or come out of their bodies.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I go back and read that, and I go, okay, this is what's happening to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had that for like several flare-ups like that, and I kept getting out fleshy nodules. They'd get smaller and smaller, and I felt like I was no longer dying because I had felt for a whole year, I am dying, I am dying, I am dying. The doctors aren't helping me. What am I going to do? And after those healing flare-ups and those fleshy nodules came out of my colon, okay, I'm going to live now. I don't feel like I'm dying anymore. So I stuck with that therapy. I ended up moving back home with my parents, and I started organic gardening and tried to grow all my own food, right? You know, I put gardens in the front yard, backyard.
Yeah.
I did that for years, but that didn't actually solve my problems. And what happened was, I think it stopped me from dying. I think I had colon cancer like my mom did.
Yeah.
I really think I think it stopped that dead. But then what happened was I got chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple chemical sensitivity, and the IBS was still a problem, man. It was a horrible problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did that for years, and then I started going online and just looking for, you know, going in online support groups, you know, and finding self-help therapies people could do, you know. And I found some different therapies that would gradually help me here and there, and finding different diet. I had to stop the Gerson completely, no juicing whatsoever. I stopped the coffee enemas. And really I think what the problem was, I had done so much fruits and vegetables. That's a lot of sugar, man. It's a lot of sugar. And I think I developed an entrenched SIBO infection in my guts. Okay, it's something they call SIBO. Anyway, I gradually got better, and in the last 5 years is really I've become functional again. You know, being able to support myself and be functional. And that's through diet and lots of self-help stuff. And then what happened was, found you and found Karl. And that was really, Karl took a while. I had to listen to him a long time. And I just, in my heart, man, my intuition kept telling me this is the truth. This is the truth. Even though it went so against my fundamentalist Christianity, right?
Right.
And another thing that happened was when I was sick and dying and I did the Gerson therapy, I had a spiritual awakening at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, I figured out that my fundamentalist Christianity was not totally right, And I had to seek God, and I had to have a personal experience with God, and I did. I had this personal experience with God. Kind of came to me while I was like on the couch, feeling like I'm dying, nobody to help me, and God came to me. I'm not kidding. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think it was a Anunnaki psychic either. I really think it was divine realm, either my higher self or whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But it was reality, and it opened my eyes to this fundamentalist approach is not right. God's bigger than that, a lot bigger than that. And God's not this mean, judgmental God that is in the Bible.
Right.
Okay? I mean, I know I have spent so many years. I did Bible college for a year. I spent so many endless hours in Bible study. Okay? This is what you do when you're a fundamentalist Christian.
Yeah.
So I know.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I had a bit of a different path, but what I did was apologetics, which is the defense of Christianity, so that you could get on the front lines and go up against the atheists and the this
right.
and that and the heretics.
I didn't
and
want that.
Yeah, and you better it's challenging because you have to read a lot, you have to understand what you read, and you have to be able to regurgitate all that stuff and understand it. And so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it turns out that's a lot of mind control. So when I had this,
not all of it, but quite a bit of it is.
Well, a lot of it is. You're making a rigid type of thinking.
Yeah.
That you're
dogma. There's dogma.
Dogma, man.
But there's a lot of the underlying principles. Number one being the existence of God, that is very helpful. That part of it I think helped me immensely. And actually made me open to what was coming from that quarter, from the channeling series and stuff, and the stuff that I was doing with Karl. And I'm always this isn't so much for your benefit, but for our listeners' benefit. This isn't about what Karl says. This is about the channeling work that he does, and the fact that, as far as we can tell so far, he appears to be able to channel Creator, God.
Yep.
And so that's the information that we're focused on here, not what Karl says. Okay, I just want to make that distinction because that is a very important distinction. Because if someone encounters Karl, the work that Karl does, and says, "Well, he's not channeling Creator," well, sorry, my opinion on that is that if you come to that conclusion, there's really no point in pursuing it any further. If that's your decision, is that he's not channeling God or Creator or whatever terminology you want to use, then there's a very strong argument to stop listening to him, or his channeling work, or da 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 da. So that's a distinction that I think that needs to be restated from time to time, because we do tend to say, "Oh, what Karl says." Well, that's not it.
Right.
Okay, so we got that out of the way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so the thing, what I'm saying, the point I wanted to make was that I had a spiritual awakening at the time that I was really sick.
Right.
And I hit rock bottom, right, in my life.
Yeah.
Right. Hit rock bottom, and I was like ready to open my mind to possibilities I didn't think of before.
Right.
I think that was really, really important. Okay.
Right.
So it brought me out of a kind of fundamentalist dogma mindset that I had so been ingrained in me through all those years of the church teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to look at the Bible for everything.
Yeah.
You have to interpret it correctly, and if you do all that right, you're going to have the truth. That was Denny, that was the I thought.
No,
That was
I
the
know.
only
I'm
source
very
of truth.
familiar with that whole scene. Yeah, I know.
So, if you think that's the only way you can get to truth, you are stuck, man. That's
Yeah,
your only way.
yeah,
So when I had that spiritual awakening, I'm like, no, wait a minute. There's an experience there. There's a real being up there who really can come into your mind and your life in a powerful way if you're even open to it.
right. And it's
And
actually, you discover it through that process that it's within you. It's not something external to you. It's actually inside of you.
I totally
Yeah,
agree with that because it
yeah.
felt like it was in my mind. It felt like
You're
it
part of
was,
your being.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it
right.
felt like.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
So, so it opened up another avenue of truth that I never would have thought
right.
could exist, and actually more powerful and stronger than the Bible and my teachers and all that stuff. And I would agree, it came from in here, man.
Yeah,
It came from in here,
yeah,
from my heart. Okay, my heart, right? That's where and so intuitive, right?
right.
Intuitive gateway.
Yes.
That's really the best explanation for it.
Yeah,
So that opened up an idea that there is this other gateway, other source of knowledge, way bigger and way more loving than I ever imagined. I'll never forget how that felt. It was unbelievable.
yeah,
So that's what happened, and then I run into you and Karl, and then the of course the channelings from Karl, right? And every time I'd listen to one of those, and at first the channelings were just, the light beings, or you sometimes had a higher self channeling or the subconscious ones, and it wasn't for a little while till Karl figured out he could channel Creator,
that's
and
correct.
you started putting the videos up.
That's
right?
correct.
So at first it was just channeling light beings.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yeah.
maybe the higher self one, maybe you had one of those in there or something.
Right.
But every time I listened to them, no matter how much they go against what my dogmas were, my heart, man, was like, this is the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. And it took months to flip around and go, yep, it really is. It really is. And he really has got access to divine realm.
Yeah.
And there are beings there, that can be accessed.
Yeah.
And then I also totally believe that when he channeled, I didn't ever believe in a higher self. You don't get that in your Christian training ever.
No, you might get the Holy Spirit or guardian angel or something like that, but not higher self.
Not a higher self, man.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I think is just all the time that I have listened to every single channeling from Karl, every single seminar, webinar, multiple. I mean, 5 to 10 times, a lot of times.
Wow.
All of them. Because I can listen to them while I'm working, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, so I'm not concentrating the whole time, but you keep listening to it, it starts getting in you.
Right.
And so, it now, and we're seeing such a progression in the revelation, that because as we learn more, it makes sense. Divine realm can reveal more. We're coming in with the right questions, and we're ready.
Right.
We're ready for this knowledge now. And so it just, it's making so much sense to me, and the higher self makes so much sense to me. So then what's been happening is I got blessed really with business, and I had the money to go, hey man, I want to talk to Karl and say, hey Karl, how can you help me with my healing? Because I'm still not 100%. I'm functional.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so blessed and so much better than I did for so many years of pain and agony, but not anything like what I want. Not, the health and vitality and energy that I really want.
Right.
And so when I finally have some money, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get in touch with Karl and say, Karl, what can you do for me? Do I need a higher self channeling? Do I need a subconscious channeling? I for sure pay you to do an LHP for me, because that's something Karl does. So I did that, and then he checked with Creator, and Creator said, well, the best thing for Michael would be some subconscious channelings, with that HMR.
Right.
That's how he does it. So that's what he got from Creator. And so what I did, I don't know if he does this with everybody, but I pay for 4 sessions at a time.
Okay.
And he did that over. He's a busy guy, and so he would do it weekly when he could, but then he's traveling or this or that or whatever happens. And so I've done two different four session deals. So he's done 8 of them on me.
Wow.
And that's been over, like, I don't remember the time periods, but it's like 3 months or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
And the first one he did was like several weeks after. And what you do is you give him a list of symptoms you want him to work on.
Okay.
So he knew he's going to do 4 sessions, so he's like, okay, give me 4 things to work on.
Okay.
And so my number one thing is the chronic fatigue, right? And
Okay.
you just give him a simple thing. I have chronic fatigue symptoms.
Okay.
So that's an issue for me. Another one was gut problems, gut issues. Those are my 2 longest. And again, these are things that I've had for 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're long-term chronic stuff.
Right.
Another one that I gave him on that first list, eye floaters. I was having these eye floaters.
Oh, I remember that. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And that's like a periodic thing that will come and go,
Mm-hmm.
but not like I've had for 20 years.
Right. Right.
Just come and go. And then I think, pretty sure the 4th one on that first list was a swollen testicle. Okay.
Right.
Had that for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so those were it. I mean, I just give him those things. And each session he works on just one of them.
Okay.
And then so with those sessions, he works with another woman. Her name was Ollie or Olivia.
Yeah. Correct.
Ollie. And she does the HMR part, and he just channels my subconscious.
Right.
And then he sends me the recording, and then I had the recording transcribed, so I can have it written and the recording.
Right.
And I'm willing to put those out there for anybody,
Yeah.
So he did that on all 4 of those symptoms, and then he was doing it, once a week for like about 3 weeks. And like I said, he didn't get started till like 3 weeks, I think, after I hired him originally,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had forgotten about when are these going to happen.
Right.
I do remember the first time I read his email, he said, I'm going to start on Friday, whatever date.
Yeah.
But I had forgotten about it, right? You know?
Yeah.
And all I can remember, though, is after he did the first 2, I decided to go back and look, when were those dates he was going to start that?
Okay.
And I went and looked at them, and 2 of them were on a Friday, and I remember those 2 Fridays feeling a difference in myself.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, and actually one of them was, I think both of them were like the night before. Like on Thursday night, I started feeling something different.
Yeah.
And what I felt really was just a deep level of relaxation, of stress relief. Kind of at some deep level, man.
Yeah.
And I went back, so like I said, this is like 2 weeks after this is like after the first 2 weeks he did that. Somewhere on that 3rd week, I go and look up the dates, and I go, wow, those were dates that he worked on me. And actually, the healing feeling could actually happen the night before.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense because of the way we know time works, right?
Yep.
So,
we see the same phenomenon with the Lightworker healing protocol. That happens sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, because of looping of time, before something actually happens, the benefits start being seen. I totally believe that.
In some cases, that's what happens.
And this was happening, okay? And then I also did feel, some, for sure, changes like the 3rd week. So, as after I looked up the date and I knew he was going to do it, I was still feeling something happen. And it was like a stress relief. Another thing was it's just sleep better at night, like that Thursday night, just better sleep.
Yep.
And so I guess the point, too, is now I've listened. So all the other sessions, I didn't really feel something that particular day. It was those initial ones. I felt some big stress relief.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing was the one the time he did the eye floaters one, there was a huge, like 50% reduction in the eye floaters. Right after.
Okay.
And I think that's because that was a symptom, like I said, it was only periodic for me. That was not a long-standing symptom.
Right.
So what happened there was like the day he did that session, boom, man, 50% reduction in the eye floaters. And then gradually over time, they kept reducing more.
Okay. All right.
And so now the eye floaters was something that would happen to me and be there for a month or two and then go away. And over the years, that would happen. So the eye floaters are gone now. They're just completely gone. But I did notice when he did that session, there was a big change. And I think it's because it just wasn't a long-standing issue.
Right.
And so then what I was going to say is the other sessions, I did notice something. I didn't feel something, on that day or the day before. I didn't feel anything. But after this long period of time now, so the second set of them, I told him the chronic fatigue again, the irritable bowel syndrome again, the gut problems again, the swollen testicle again, and I got rid of the eye floaters because it took care of it after the first round of, sessions. Okay, I can't remember now what the fourth one was, but I know. It was difficulty of urination.
Okay.
That's a prostate symptom, right?
Right.
So difficulty of urination. So he did do a session on that in the second round of sessions.
Okay.
So he did do 2 sessions between the 2 rounds, 2 of them on the chronic fatigue, and 2 of them on the gut problems.
Okay.
And through all the sessions, he basically does 3 times where she will ask my subconscious, what comes to your mind when you think about chronic fatigue? What part of your body comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
And that subconscious will identify a part of the body.
Okay.
And then she'll say, okay, with that in mind, what memory comes up? And some kind of a traumatic memory would come up over every single time. And they'll basically go through 3 traumas like that in a session.
Yeah.
And so that out of my 8 sessions, at least 3 of them, 3 traumas, all different. None of them were the same trauma. And these things are grim. Okay. The stuff we have been through, again, the average human being's been through 473 lifetimes.
Something like 429 or 423 or something. That's the average. That's the average number of lifetimes that all of us on Earth right now have had on Earth. So that number could actually vary somewhat because of the population, because we have a unique population situation right now, which is actually not what everybody thinks, but we could talk about that later. But I mean that's the thing. So it's a good point you bring up, because, and then you look at all the human history that we know about. So for instance, we know that humans in the current form have been on the planet for about 125,000 years, up 150,000 years, somewhere in there. And our recorded history is probably only good for a tiny fraction of that. And even that's been so manipulated and distorted and whatever. But for what we do know, that there's been a lot of horrific episodes for humanity. Well, guess what? Most of us on the planet right now, we're through all of that in some iteration of the other, serving as either a victim role or a perpetrator role. So when you say grim, that's the backstory for what you're going to tell us now.
Right. So I think, if I remember right, almost every one of those 24, memories that were associated with, that were traumatic, I think almost every one of them I died. I was a certain age and I died from it.
Yeah.
At least most of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was tortured to death a whole bunch of times. I was a soldier or warrior or something, several of them. Other times I was sick and died. I died from
Yeah.
the sickness. Horrible, painful death, right?
Yeah.
So that's what each one of those traumatic memories would be. And then at the end of the three, then they'll say, gather up all the other versions of you that had similar. Well, I think before that they'll ask, what conclusions did after the three traumas,
Yeah.
what conclusions did you draw from those three experiences? What thoughts were in your mind or whatever? And it would always be something like something that always comes to my mind. Okay, I knew it was my subconscious, right?
Yeah.
Because it'd be something like life never works out, or it isn't worth it, or
I deserve this.
yeah,
Or I must. If I didn't deserve this, this wouldn't have happened to me, or something like that.
Some negative thought that
or belief.
A belief, yeah, a belief.
Yeah.
So negative belief that is so typical of me that I knew, yep, that's my subconscious, all right, no doubt about it, because I of course have no memory whatsoever of any of those traumas.
Yeah. And most of these traumas that they're bringing up are not from this lifetime.
No, I think every one of them, all of them they were not.
Yeah.
None of them were.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I know for sure none of those traumas were this lifetime.
Okay.
But the beliefs that I got from it, every one of them, that's me, yeah. And so they'd ask, what are the beliefs? And then one of the steps is, can I ask Creator to heal those beliefs, and then you get a new belief out of that. And then another thing is to ask, okay, gather up all your prior selves that identify with these beliefs or whatever. And how many are there?
Right.
Right. And a lot of times it'd be a whole bunch of them. Right.
Yeah. You filled up a football stadium.
You filled up a bunch of them. And if you add up and pile up all the negative beliefs they all have, how high is it, right?
Yeah.
That's like a mountain,
Yeah. Right.
And so then part of it is a step of getting colors and healing of all those traumas and beliefs.
Yes.
And they're all unhealed. They're
Yes.
all unhealed. They're all in your Akashic records. Your deep subconscious has access to all of them.
Yeah.
So your deep subconscious, while you're asleep at night, and other, whatever else is going on, your subconscious is going and looking at all that stuff and worrying about it.
Yep.
And that's what's causing the stress, which is causing all your diseases and illnesses.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That makes total sense to me.
Yep.
So I don't have total relief of all my stuff, but what I saw with those eye floaters was pretty amazing. And I've also had, since it's been like a 3-month time span now, there's been big changes in my life that I never could have foreseen. That's been really helping with the chronic fatigue, the biggest issues for me, the chronic fatigue in the gut, right?
Yeah.
Those are my two biggest ones, the most
Right.
long-standing.
Right.
And there has been some changes in my life, stuff I never would foresee.
That's what blows my mind, is because we see these problems, we put a lot of energy into understanding these problems, and we get very fixated about our conception of them, and we put the problems in a box. We have, this is the container my problem fits in, because you're concerned. Obviously you're concerned, and that's one of the things that I think is so fascinating about this healing. Whether it's by virtue of the holographic memory resolution that we're talking about in the deep subconscious channeling, we'll talk about this later. There's two different ways to approach this modality, and then the Lightworker healing protocol, and then the healing comes in, and you find things that are outside of this box that are helping with the problem, and you're going, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of it this way. Isn't that amazing? I've seen that over and over and over again, and it's like a reminder, hey, you got to be more open-minded about what's going on here, because where the healing comes from could be from a quarter that it's not even in your consciousness. You're just going, something comes up, like you said, and it's related to the problem, but you never thought of it that way. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I just find that fascinating.
I think especially that's like how Divine Realm works, is this
Yes.
very gradual thing. But man, over a few months' time, you go and look at the big, some big turning point happened somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's amazing, and it's like you never could have thought of it or planned it, and it comes to you. To me, it's like from Divine Realm, because of course I'm doing LHPs for like about a year now. I think I started doing daily
Yeah.
ones.
You're a student. You're
So
a practitioner and a student.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm a
Yeah.
practitioner doing LHPs, which every time you do one, you're doing it on yourself too.
Right. Right.
So I've been doing that for like a year now, every day, and I'm sure that's playing into it too. But I think that these, my energy levels have made a gigantic shift. Okay, it's still not where I want it, but
Yeah.
a gigantic shift.
Yeah.
So worth the money I spent. So worth it. And also the irritable bowel, the gut problem too. My main issue there was like I'm functional, but I have a super limited diet, and I wanted to expand it.
Yeah.
Well, I've done that.
Wow.
In a huge way.
Wow.
And it's like, all because of something intertwined with the energy. It's like actually what happened was I got into a whole new business that I never foresaw, and it wraps all this stuff together and helps me with my diet, helps me with my energy, helps me on all these levels, man. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
And the thing too that I found out about the inflamed or the swollen testicle, nothing has happened on that, but I found out what it was, and it's actually not a big deal. Okay, there's something called a hydrocele, which means this happens to infants, and it can happen to adults too, but it's just a swollen sac of water around a testicle. So it's not a problem really. It's just it's a pain when it's too big.
Yeah.
But it's not like cancer or something.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what happened was somewhere in here, I went to my acupuncturist, and she said, "Oh, you should check with your doctor who did your hernia surgery, because I had to have hernia surgery 3 years ago, and go check with him and see if he knows what it is." So I did that, and I told him the symptoms and stuff, and he said, "Well, I'm 90% sure that's a hydrocele." So then he ordered a ultrasound, which we know now is bad, but
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do that, and the ultrasound shows, yeah, it's just a hydrocele. So it's not like any kind of big negative thing. And really, honestly, I think that idea came from Divine Realm. I really do.
Wow.
About,
Wow.
so I at least know that I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yeah.
And
Which is a big part of all this, because you find out that that's what the deep subconscious is doing with all these traumas, and it's
Right.
like this big, sack of groceries that you have to lug around all the time. Only it's way bigger than that, because we're talking about 400 some odd lives of trauma, and it's a wonder. I mean, what was it? There's a reporter, the alternative reporter, Rappaport, John Rappaport, I think.
I think I've heard that name.
Yeah, and he says, and he looks into all this stuff. I mean, he's really interesting fellow. I wish he was more popular. But he said he looked at all this stuff, and he said it's amazing that humans can even survive.
I would agree, because even with all this healing, this is only 8 sessions with Karl, only 24 traumas.
Yeah.
You got 1 or 2 at least in every lifetime. I mean, at least.
Yep.
Oh, man. So, there's a huge healing need out there. And that's why, I want to put my information out there. I want to put my stuff out there, get more people doing it. We just need an army of people doing this, because I think it goes to total root causes. I totally believe that.
Yeah.
And we already know stress, underlying stress, is at the root of practically every disease and illness out there.
Yeah.
And that a lot of that is your deep subconscious worried.
Access to things that we just don't have access to. A lot of us don't even believe in it. But just because you doesn't believe in it doesn't make it not real, So I mean,
you know what? Here's another point I want to make too from my history. Okay, one of the things I ran into 5 years, or this is like at least 5 years ago, that helped me get my healing. Remember I told you I started getting functional about 5 years ago?
Yeah.
One of the things I started doing was applied kinesiology.
Okay.
You have to have a partner to do that. I found a partner, a woman who is like only 10 minutes away from me here. She had training in. She had training in kinesiology, and she was a friend of mine, and from these other alternative health stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she had fibromyalgia real bad herself,
Oh,
and
gosh.
chronic fatigue.
Wow.
So she was like a non-functional person like me when I ran into her.
Yeah.
We're both really sick, and she was also did reflexology. Reflexology is where you work on the feet and you know all about the Chinese meridians and stuff.
Yep.
She's like a total expert in that. She was experienced in kinesiology, and I got this new kinesiology course, and I needed to have a partner do it. And she said, "Yeah, I'll do it with you." So we watched these DVDs, we did it on each other, and we got experts at it. And we worked on each other about every week or every other week for like a couple years. And man, because one of the things when you're doing muscle testing, I don't know what you're accessing, whether it's the deep subconscious or it's not the conscious mind. Okay,
Right.
you're accessing something because we got good at it, and we both could use kinesiology to test a question that we think in our mind and don't even tell the other person. And you would get accurate answers because you could flip the question into a negative,
Yeah.
and the muscle would be totally accurate.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter how many times we'd flip it and ask the question a different way, the answer was consistent.
Yeah.
So you're accessing either a deep subconscious or a higher self. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we could do that, and the problem was neither we were Christians and didn't believe in other lifetimes.
Oh, right. Yeah.
If we would have known that, and we would have thought it. No, I'm not kidding, man.
No, I know.
I think we could have
it's such a
accessed-
barrier. It's a real
Yeah.
barrier to healing because that goes back to this whole foundational issue with the LHP is because so much of the LHP is predicated on knowing what's wrong. You know, you can't heal something if you're totally ignorant about what's wrong. So it's not that we know everything about what's wrong, but we know a lot about what's wrong, and that's what makes the Lightworker healing protocol so effective because we know what needs healing. You know, and so, but that's a great example because that is such a barrier for us. I mean, and I'll even go so far as to say that a lot of us have a surface belief in reincarnation. We believe in previous lives, but it's not really incorporated into our thinking and the way we view the overall human experience. It's like, oh yeah, I had previous lives, but you know, when I was a kid, I stubbed my toe, and that's why that's why I cry at night or something. You know, no man, all of that's a contributing aspect to where you're at right now. You know,
it's hugely affecting. It's hugely affecting all your illnesses, all your relationships, all your beliefs, man.
Yes.
So what I will point out too, when I did the kinesiology, we both got a lot of healing, and I'll tell you why. We started every session with prayer, every single time, and we were praying. We were always praying, God help us, God help us, God help us. And so every time we were working on an issue, even though we were only focusing on this lifetime, you know, and traumas of this life, we were always seeking divine realm help.
Yeah.
And asking for God and Holy Spirit and Jesus to help us.
Yep.
I think we got a lot of healing at a deeper level because we're doing that. But if we would have known, if you could take that tool, now I could take that tool and use it knowing what I know now. Yeah. Man, I think it could do amazing things, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a game changer, knowing that these past lives are having a huge impact on you.
Yeah.
Your deep subconscious has total access to that.
Yeah.
So
it's true. Now, what I want to do, just real quick, for our viewers, is talk a little bit about the holographic memory resolution, in the conventional format. And I mean, this is from your neck of the woods down there. The Tucson is the guy who developed it. His name's Brent Baum, and you can look up Brent Baum on the internet, and he's the guy who developed the holographic memory resolution, and I took the course. I took, so I don't have a certification in it, but I do have a completion certificate for the course. So I know how to do it. You and I have done it.
Yeah.
I need to say that I believe my understanding of holographic memory resolution, that the way Karl does it, it's superior. But it's also very effective in its conventional application. It's very effective, especially if you have any kind of physical symptoms. Like if you have a sore neck, if you have a migraine headache,
I would
something because that's your body's way of telling you something's wrong, and usually that is attached to some type of a memory, or trauma. So what
Right.
this so I just want to read a little really short description of what this is. Holographic Memory Resolution, and this is developed by Brent Baum again, and it's you'll hear HMR. That's what that stands for, Holographic Memory Resolution. Okay, it employs methods that encourage visualization and discovery of memories in a safe and secure environment. HMR therapy allows a person to access their past experiences very quickly and without emotional associations, bypassing the awful, painful ordeal of reliving past traumas. Instead, with HMR, you can identify and address specific memories, resolve trauma confinements, and immediately begin to self-heal and bring yourself back into balance. Now, he has a very good track record with this modality, and he's based out of Tucson. He teaches it all over the United States. He has conferences and whatnot. So, I mean, we have to give credit here. Now, what Karl does is he works with somebody who's had the training like I've trained, and that's Ollie. We mentioned Ollie. And she will take the person, in this case, it's Karl channeling through Creator that person's deep subconscious. So this is something that you and I normally wouldn't have access to. We don't have access to our deep subconscious. This is something that's rumbling below the conscious level. That's why they call it the deep subconscious. Normally, even in regressions and normal channeling that you would get with most people, this is not accessible. In fact, this is unfortunately one of those areas where the process can get easily hijacked. And that happens. It's legion. It's, we can talk about that more. I mean, that's kind of like the downside of all this. But if you do have a channeler who employs the protections in the manner that Karl does with this, with the divine realm, protecting the connection between him and the client's deep subconscious, then a person like Ollie or myself can take the deep subconscious via Karl through this process of accessing these traumas. And so what you're doing is you're reframing the emotional content of the trauma. It doesn't change the trauma's still there. It's just it's not this negative baggage that the deep subconscious needs to worry about. It gives the deep subconscious a chance to reframe that memory so it's no longer a threat to your consciousness, to your life.
Yep.
And then over time, the physical symptoms related to that can start to resolve.
Yep.
So you're removing the root cause of the ailment rather than masking over the symptoms with some other energetic or pharmaceutical therapy or something like that. Now, unfortunately, that's what pharmaceuticals do. Unfortunately, a lot of the other energy healing type modalities do the same thing. They will remove the surface noise, if you will, or the aggravation from an energetic level, but the cause is still there. So the cause reappears over time a lot of times. And that's one of the reasons that energy healing in the traditional methods can end up being not effective. Sometimes they are, but in many cases they're not. They will reappear over time because the root issue, which we've been discussing, has not been addressed. So that's kind of like, Denny's version of the HMR, and I'm really happy to find this, and I'm really happy to know that it can be made even more effective. It's quite effective as it is in the conventional manner. Just you getting with a practitioner and saying, "Yeah, man, my shoulder's bugging me," and then you go through this guided process where you get to reframe the trauma, the underlying trauma that's being indicated by that bodily thing, or it could be an event or whatever.
I would agree. And when you did it on me, I think you did like 3 on me, didn't you? 3 or 4 sessions. 3 or 4 sessions we did on Skype. And we could access, a place on me that was, we could always identify a place on my body.
Yeah.
And come up with a color and stuff. But the memories, I would always just go back to something in my childhood.
Yes. That's a good point. And that's important. A lot of things can be aided in that, doing it that way. But to be honest, the deep subconscious is where, I'm sorry, that's that's the money. That's where the rubber meets the road. And
Well,
so it's what makes it superior, So a lot can get done, not doing the deep subconscious, but let's be real. What Karl's come into in this particular application of it is pretty profound.
I think it goes totally to the absolute deep root,
Yeah.
the absolute final root
Yeah.
of where the stuff starts. I agree. And I think what will happen too with energy healing, and just like with you working on me, if the people are focusing spiritually,
Yeah.
for divine realm help,
Yes.
divine realm may take that memory from this lifetime and still go back and do some work on
Yeah.
that deep thing. You know what I mean?
No,
I'll bet you that's what's happening.
No, that's a really good point, because Karl and I actually we had a conversation about this recently, because I told him we were going to do this interview, and he said, and that's exactly what he brought up. He says you can always aid a conventional HMR session with the divine realm's help, talking specifically about what you just said, and that could empower the whole HMR session. So, and that's not really addressed in in the course material that I got from Brent, which is that's okay. There's nothing against him. The guy deserves a huge amount of credit for developing this. This is a life-changing thing. He's helped so many people. He's been doing this for years. So if anybody has an opportunity to learn it, my gosh, learn it, because you can really help. And one of the things I want to mention is that the Lightworker healing protocol is a very powerful healing modality. A lot of things can get done. But one thing it doesn't do is abrogate the client's free will. So if you have a strongly held belief that's developed through trauma, through back lifetimes, the divine realm is not going to step in and change your beliefs. That needs to be something that's accessed on the personal level. Even if it's the deep subconscious, those beliefs get reframed by the person, not by the divine realm. So that's one of the reasons that we don't say that the Lightworker healing protocol fixes everything, because it doesn't. It doesn't step in and replaces someone's free will or firmly held beliefs. And believe me, beliefs that have accrued over multiple traumas, over hundreds of lifetimes, isn't something that's just going to change overnight.
I agree.
It takes work.
And even with the sessions of Karl, I mean, I kind of think some of the very same or similar beliefs are going to kind of keep coming up. I mean, you just got to figure so many traumas, and he's still only dealt with so many, doing these sessions. And I would agree with you. And another reason why Brent Baum is getting success, even if he's not directly asking divine realm, if his heart intention is right,
it goes a long way.
That goes. He's using kind of an intuitive connection there that's divine, right?
Yeah.
He's using a divine ability.
Yeah, and that's not the same.
That's divine realm coming in, man.
And it's always a client-centered, client-directed modality. So that's another thing that works in the favor of the HMR, is that the guidance that is implicit in the HMR is not something that directs the client in a certain direction. So everything that comes up is from the client. Everything that's healed is from the client. So it's a client-centered modality, which makes it very so. And the reason I bring that up is because if someone has a very high belief quotient, they believe in God, they believe that they're worthy of healing, which is a really important aspect, which is difficult to come by in the human realm right now because of what we've just been talking about. Those things can play a very important role in HMR, because in the HMR, those things are allowed to flourish and come up and be present and part of the healing. It's not something that's going to be overshadowed because the modality goes by some kind of rote dogma.
Right. Well, and so I would say too, when you worked on me, I wasn't having some big, physical symptoms at the time.
Yeah.
But I was having small ones, and I'll tell you, every time you did it on me, I felt this big kind of stress relief off of me.
Yeah.
And I could see, if I had some kind of a pain or whatever else, it could still be really, really helpful, because like you said, it's totally client directed. And if that practitioner, whether you or whoever, has got the right heart And then if both of you do believe in God,
Yeah.
go ahead and ask Divine Realm, man. That's going to supercharge it like crazy.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a subconscious channeler access to them, I still think, you could get a lot of Divine Realm help in there to really pull
Yeah.
off
No,
what
it's a good point,
you're doing.
and I've been kind of head over heels with Karl's modality and stuff, but he kind of pulled me back down, and he said, exactly what you just said. You employ the divine real helps for each one of those sessions, and you might be surprised at how much you get done, and it might end up being not that different from doing the deep subconscious channeling. So
Yeah.
it's just something to put out there. And the other reason I was excited to do this interview with you is because you were really interested in the MAP issue like I was. I found out that I wasn't MAP abductee either. I wasn't abducted. I wasn't part of the Mercenary
Right.
Army Program. But my heart goes out to these people for a lot of different reasons. Some of them are obvious. I think there's probably some things in my background that would give a better understanding of why I'm so interested in helping these people, but it's neither here nor there. The fact remains that is something that I want to do, and I'm called to do it. So, but a lot of the HMR stuff activity around for me and for you too, peripherally, has been around the MAP issue. So a lot of the MAP people who've been able to avail themselves of Karl's work with the HMR have gone there. Okay, so now we get to talk about. So a lot of people, that LHP practitioners or people following Get Wisdom and stuff, they go, oh, HMR and the MAP. There's like the two acronyms go together, HMR, MAP, HMR, MAP. But the reason I was excited to do this interview with you is because you're not in that category per se, but you've had direct experience with trauma that in many cases could be every bit as devastating as what the MAP folks is.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
so it's kind of a lesson for everybody, is that the healing need is great, and you don't need to be in some category of MAP or something else, a political leader or someone who's been killed and replaced by a reptilian, or there's all these like special categories that humans like to give to other humans. But the fact is that we're all one family, and this whole family's been subjected to a lot of trauma, and that trauma needs to be healed.
So several of those traumas that were identified, where you get a little story,
Yeah,
it's an
right.
actual memory,
Yeah.
and he'd get an age and a memory, what age were you and what happened, and he'd get, like a paragraph or two about what happened. Some of those were very similar to tortures that happened to MAP people.
Okay. All right.
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
The other thing is, when I did the kinesiology, two of the friends I spent loads of time doing it with were definitely MAP. Okay, I know from memories and stuff. They have memories, and I know from the stuff we were dealing with, and they do too. They were abducted and stuff like that. And they believed in aliens and all that.
Yeah.
They knew they were MAP. So I think two of the people that I spent the most time on doing the kinesiology, and we got a lot of healing, Denny, a lot of healing. And I know it's because all of us were praying like crazy and asking Divine Realm to help us, help us, help us.
Yeah.
And I am sure that's why we were getting the healing. We could only identify, this lifetime traumas, but I'll bet you we're getting healing at deeper levels because I saw it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree, but I mean the traumas that happened to me were so similar. Some of them were so similar to MAP traumas that they go through in training.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean they, and some of them are just like evil beyond description. I mean, the classic one is like, there's a puppy in the room, and the MAP trainee is a young person. That's, they usually grab them when they're young, and they let a relationship develop between the puppy and the child, and then the child is instructed to kill the puppy.
Right.
So they're put into this moral conundrum where there's no winner. So if they don't do it, then something worse happens. Like they torture the puppy in front of the kid.
Right.
And it's so and then so every variation on that theme that you could think of is the kind of things that we're talking about here for people who maybe not had been exposed to this stuff. And it comes through the the Illuminati mind control thing for and other abductee type scenarios where the belief is it's human on human, and on and on and on. So there's literature about this. You can read about it. It's it's becoming common knowledge for people that are in the rabbit hole now.
Yep.
Part of the whole mind control scenario, creating dissociative disorders, personality disorder, what they used to call multiple personality disorder. That's how they create these splits. They break the consciousness up into components. Yep. So this is what we're talking about, and unfortunately, it's part of almost all humans' history in some form or another.
And what's interesting to me, because at the beginning of the channelings with Karl and stuff, didn't go into this, and I knew and believed the DID. I knew and believed all those stories about what happened to these people, and there's an Illuminati out there doing it. And at first, I think we weren't ready, right? Divine Realm wasn't going to put it out there.
Yeah.
But now we've gotten far deeper, and now, all that stuff that I knew, that's exactly what's been happening to you people.
Yeah.
And it's going on generation after generation after generation, because that's how they operate.
Yeah.
And
where do they learn it? From the ETs.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was talking about the ETs, but that's exactly right. Yeah, the ETs have been doing this to us.
Yeah. And so now they have a cadre of humans that are doing it to humans, and now it's got a high tech flavor, and now it's being sold from the governments and the Illuminati and the intelligence agencies from the various governments is being sold into crime syndicates.
Anybody that's got the money now,
can do this, and you could have your own little, cadre of sex slaves or whatever, because the technology's out there now, and it's kind of a turnkey thing. Yep. And it's in just one of those other aspects of life on planet Earth right now, where we talk about the death of 1,000 cuts. This is just added to the list of things: 5G,
right.
the toxic environment, the soil depletion, all this other stuff.
Yep.
So I mean, but that all goes back to the healing aspect, because we need to know what's wrong. We need to have a very sober, cold analysis of knowledge of everything that is wrong in the world, because once we know what's wrong, then we can start healing it,
Yep.
And it's a bitter pill to swallow, but the good news is that it's healable. All of this is fixable. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it is fixable.
And I'd say in my own personal experience, what I have seen and witnessed, man, in the last year, and in these last 3 or 4 months of Karl working on this, I mean, absolutely. Yeah. This is getting exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It's getting really exciting.
Yeah. And that's why this video, I think, is very important. If ever I had a video that went viral, I would like it to be this one, because it is ultimately the good news, and we're not leaving anything out. We brought all the bad stuff into this circle, and these are all things that can be addressed in a partnership with the divine realm and healed definitively once and for all. And one of the most important points about this is that we're not using human notions of justice. We're talking about raising all up through a spiritual solution, so that we're talking about healing the perpetrators. And we're not just talking about the bad guys, the Pol Pots, the Stalins, the Hitlers. We're talking about the people that controlled them, which aren't people. They're ETs, extraterrestrial. So there's a dark ET alliance out there manipulating humans, and they are included in this healing.
And the fallen angels that are parasites on them and us.
Exactly.
I agree. We finally have the tool. We have never ever had the tools to do this, and it's getting really, really exciting. And I mean, I hope too, partly we could get an army of people out there like Karl who can do the channeling that he can do. I mean, there's a lot of energy healers and people, intuitive people
Well,
If they,
once you start to see, we're at the embryonic stage right here, because once we start to see the efficacy of this and the proof in the healing, which is, it's out there. I've got testimonials on my webpage. We've got a bunch on Get Wisdom. We have people like you. We have people that are recipients of the LHP and now they're practitioners, and the stories are starting to build. And people are going to see this HMR aspect of it, and the channelers are going to go, hey, I want to be able to do this too, and it's going to catch on. It will catch on at some point. It will catch on. I know Karl's got some. There are some people that Karl is in contact with that have the potential to do what he's doing. Now,
great.
this is kind of a time pinch, but that is the long-term goal here, is to be able to help and train other channelers to do what he's doing, so this HMR thing could kind of take off.
Yeah.
We're always gonna promote primarily the Lightworker healing protocol, because so much can get done with that in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so,
absolutely.
like, for instance, when Karl has a client like yourself who wants to do the HMR thing, and almost always a Lightworker healing protocol session will be done first. It's like getting the room ready, clean everything up.
I agree. Yeah. You want to do that first thing with Karl. That's always the first thing you need to do.
Yeah. So,
and the thing about the LHP too is anybody can do it, man. It's so simple,
Yeah.
Anybody can do this, and it'll change your life, change the life of everyone around you, change all your business affairs, change all your relationships. I mean, it's amazing, and I'm glad he's connecting with some channelers, because I think that you getting at the subconscious, the unhealed traumas from prior lifetimes, that is the ultimate deepest source of all the illness we're having, all the relationship problems we're having.
Yeah. And we probably should talk about the whole, like you touched on it earlier, is the time concept, is that both of these healing modalities, now I would say especially the Lightworker healing protocol, takes into consideration the human illusion of time, because like we talk about past lives all the time, but in actuality they're parallel lives. You could envision them as a bunch of parallel lines all running concurrently, and that's how the healing, the really good healing aspects of the LHP in all different realms operate with that in mind. So we're not imposing the human illusion of time on the healing process. So it's kind of a mind bender. We've had a couple webinars on this recently, so it's not an easy thing to kind of like digest. But it's important to note that's a huge feature of the LHP, is its ability to heal without the constraints of our misconceptions of time.
Well, and I agree, and especially, this has really been hit on in the very last seminar you guys did, webinar, and I just had to listen to that over and over.
No, it's kind of a twister.
Over. But what's amazing there is Karl can sit there and come up with these examples of clients he's had, and how this past thing or this future extension or whatever had this effect, and how we now have an LHP that now is stronger and more powerful, because number one, we're calling in divine realms, the only ones that can look at all these extensions and all these concurrent time loops, it's all going at once.
Yes, it's very complex.
They're the only ones powerful enough to do that. And Karl's got these amazing examples of how he did an LHP session on someone in a prior LHP where we didn't know how to ask for and request that specific help that captures them all in one big ball,
Yeah.
And so it's like amazing, and so I think, again, we didn't reach the level where we could really understand this.
Yeah.
And now, because that LHP just keeps going forward and we keep it throwing in one new sentence.
Yeah.
Unleashes divine power that does amazing things. But now we are capturing all the loops and all the time extensions, which are not even like a time loop. It's just a potential.
Yeah, potentials.
But it can impact your darn life, man, in a big, huge way.
Yeah.
And you might have had an LHP done prior where that wasn't requested, and a new one needs to be done. But now we got the request in there, so now that's covered, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like absolutely amazing. But now those webinars, man, if you listen to those over and over and over several times, they start to really make sense. And if you really get that LHP and read that thing and read Karl's book about it and understand it, and really doing it every day helps you.
Yeah.
Helps you understand it. You know, I have to read the thing. Okay, that's how I do it, or I won't stay awake if I don't read it and focus my concentration on it.
Right.
But doing that every day helps ingrain. What does that mean, and what am I saying there? You know, each time it's gonna grow.
Yeah, it's a good point, because the repeated exposure kind of corrects the habit of thinking of things from the human perspective. And there's nothing terribly wrong with the human perspective, but it's a corrupted perspective for the most part, for most of us, just due to the mind control that's applied universally on the planet. So thinking of things the way the divine realm thinks of things is a huge help, because it deepens that understanding about not only what's wrong, but how the divine realm is healing, how it's being done, And we're mostly a witness. Our role in all of this is a requester and a witness, for the most part. That's our involvement in there. All the heavy lifting is done by the divine realm, but we're blessed with the fact that we know what to ask for.
Well, and that's the important thing. See, we have to keep growing, because it's because we've been under so much mind control. You first get into this is all so new, and you got to start it. The more you can align your intention with what those words really mean and what Karl means, by them,
right?
Or because a lot of that he got right from divine realm.
Right. It wasn't from Karl.
Yeah, the language in there is basically straight from divine realm.
Right.
And the more we have an intention that's in alignment with what that means, and that takes a while, man. You got to your whole mind's got to be renewed and redone.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you, but that part of us asking is divine realm. It is such a free will system we got here.
Yeah.
Divine realm is not going to come in and save us from it.
Yeah.
We have to do it.
Right.
We have to make the right requests. We have to know what we're requesting.
Right.
We have to know time is a whole bunch of loops with a whole bunch of extensions, and all of it needs to be healed.
Yeah.
For all of us and all our perpetrators.
Right.
Or it ain't going to happen.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing. We really all, we got to get at least a quantity of us. We don't know how many.
No.
But a certain number of us a quorum of us have got to know this and understand it.
And then do it.
That was what will unleash the divine power that could do this like that. Because we've been told numerous times, you get enough people, this will happen tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get enough people making this request, it will happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
It is.
It's like we had to be shown, and we had to be taught, and we had to learn what all these requests are and what they mean. And we need to, so the more we do it, so that makes so much sense. The other thing is the LHP is the one prayer that we're told you need to keep doing this every day. This isn't one you can just have a word for,
Yeah. Because the healing need is so great, and that applies to us individually and collectively. We didn't get into this mess over several months or a few years. This is something that's actually literally thousands of years old. So it's a testament to the power of the divine realm, but it's also a kind of a sobering warning that our part in this is huge, on the healing end of things. So, so I want to see. I want to make sure that we've included everything that we wanted to talk about in this interview.
Okay.
And so I'm just kind of rumbling here, trying to think if there's something we missed that we might want to talk about for the sake of our viewers. I mean, I think your backstory on this has been very helpful because, I don't want this to come across as some kind of like esoteric thing, but this is an everyman, in every person type of a scenario we're talking about. I've had my difficulties, my problems. You've had yours. No one is especially suited to do the LHP. Like you're already a healer, or you're psychic, or you're intuitive. This isn't about this. This is anybody, like you said earlier, anybody can do this. Yep. And it takes a little bit of devotion, thought, and effort to learn the material, but actually doing it doesn't take any special, unique, academic skills or.
Oh.
So I think that's important. I come from an addiction background. A broken family. I could go through a whole list of things. In fact, I will share this story. When I took the HMR class down there in Tucson, in your neck of the woods, I did a follow-up course with Brent, and it was like a seminar that kind of contributed to a certification, if we wanted to get a certification as a practitioner or teacher. I can't remember which one, but one of the exercises was to draw a picture of yourself and do a graphical representation of all the trauma, that you can pick up in your memory of your life growing up and stuff. So I did one, and mine was like, when he saw it, he went, "Oh!" Like I just remember the look on his face, because there was so much stuff on there. I remembered everything, all the, one of the ones I remember was when I was, I think it was 4 or 5 years old. I was with my sister, and my grandfather's brother was out feeding the cows, and there was a flatbed truck with a bunch of bales of hay on it, and he was going down the rows of the feeding stalls, and he was putting the hay out for the cows, right? So my sister and I were sitting on the back of the truck, and he said, "Okay, you kids sit here. I'm going to pull up to the next spot, and we'll dump some more hay off." So he set us there, and then he went around to the cab of the truck to drive forward, and I went, "Oh, it'd be cool if I could get up on top, and I could look down on all the cows and the hay and everything." So I started to climb up the hay bales, and he pulled forward, and down the hay bale went, and I went all the way off the truck, and the hay bale went on my head.
Oh, golly.
And it knocked me out. And he got out of the truck, and there I am laying on the ground with it in the cow shit with a hay bale on my head. And he was terrified. It was probably more traumatic for him. So I remember coming to, and he's walking up the road to my grandpa's house with me in his arms, holding, and his tears are coming down. He didn't know whether I was going to die or what, And so that was one of the things that I drew on this drawing of the trauma and stuff. Okay, so that's kind of an innocent scenario, but I want to say this. I want to tell this story because just for our listeners, because there's a human part of all of this. We're all humans. We're all in this human family. It doesn't matter whether we're Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Taoists.
Yep.
We're all struggling to make a life, to understand why we're here, what we're doing. What does it mean to be here, to be human? And there's a very grounding aspect to being able to tell our human stories to each other, and to open up this idea that we can be healed.
Yep.
So that's my story. I want everybody to be healed.
Yeah, I'm basically an average guy. And I mean, even from all those traumas that came up in the thing, I mean, I'm like an average guy going through all these lifetimes, having your average junk happen to you, and you died this way. In this lifetime, you died this horrible way. Because, I mean, you died of some sickness, or you died in a war, or you died of... Sometimes there's tortures, man. Soldiers came and got me, right?
And it's amazingly, what we're learning too is this kind of thing, this series of events are a lot more common than we're led to believe. We weren't, he died peacefully in his sleep, or that's not really the human experience. The human experience is a lot darker than that. Unfortunately, it is, but that explains why people are struggling now. because of this backlog of unhealed trauma.
Totally, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all have got a huge, huge amount of it.
Yeah.
And the only way we're going to get healed and get well is we got to heal that stuff up using these tools, and nothing else is going to do it. These are the real roots of it. There's all, like we're learning, it's all in these energetic energies. Because of karma, all gets stored, and when it wasn't dealt with and healed to begin with, when it happened, it gets stored, and it will come back on you, and it will cause illness, or it will cause another event just like it. Because the only way we came here to learn to overcome negativity.
Yeah,
that's what physical life is all about.
Right.
That's what we're here to learn, and that's why we come here. We want to come here. We don't have to come here. We want the challenge of it because you grow from that challenge.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you got all those challenges and all those traumas and all that stuff that can only be healed, one way, by dealing with it the right way, or by a divine way.
Yeah.
And it's the only way we're going to learn what we came here to learn, and the only way we're going to get all the healing and all the benefit that you'll get from the learning experience and why it was there to begin with.
Yeah.
Why Divine Realm allowed it to happen to begin with.
Yeah.
So you can come here and learn how to deal with that, and how, when something like that happens, how you grow and how you learn.
Right.
And by reacting in a divine way, by healing it in a divine way.
Yeah.
It just makes total sense, Denny.
Yeah. Finally.
It does. It does.
Finally. Yeah. Well, I guess, I think, well, shit, I'm kind of old to be learning all this now. But really, what opportunity did we have earlier in our lives to learn this? It wasn't there. Sorry, kids, it wasn't there. Nobody was explaining any of this to us in any of the religions.
Nope.
Any of the religions.
No.
Any of the esoteric, the Gnostic materials. You may have been able to tease some of it out, but not in this package that we're given now.
Like what we're learning is, I have never, ever heard. This is
life-changing. Planet-changing, maybe, even.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the purpose of this video, is a little taste from Michael's experience with not only the Lightworker healing protocol, but the holographic memory resolution. I'll put some links in the description of this video so people can follow up and do their own research on some of this stuff, either over at Brent Baum's website for the holographic memory resolution, and also for the Lightworker healing protocol on the Get Wisdom website, getwisdom.com.
Right.
And is there anything else that you'd like to say in closing, Michael, before we call it before we wrap it up?
Not really, but the only other thing is that this is the subconscious channeling. So it's the HMR, the subconscious channeling, the LHP. These are the things that have come together, last 3 months for me, because I, could hire Karl to do it.
Yeah.
And it's been absolutely the whole journey from knowing, running into you and Karl has been life-changing. I started the LHP a year ago, like I said, daily.
Right.
That's been totally life-changing.
And you took the online course.
I didn't come out there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Karl did give a class in Petaluma in February of 2018. That's where I learned it. We had 33 students, and then I think it was in May or something of that same year, 2018. We got it online, and you were probably one of our very early students.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. One of the very early. Yeah. And
so you got to see the Lightworker healing protocol go through a lot of iterations. Because when we started out, we had like 4 different protocols, one for personal clearing, one for locations, one for companion animals, and another one for spirit rescues. And now it's all one thing. It's all one protocol that covers all of those things, plus a whole bunch of other enhancements that we've done. I think there's been like 13 or 14 enhancements that have been done since February 2018 that have made the protocol even more powerful. I mean, dramatically more powerful.
It may be only like a sentence or two, but it changes everything as far as unleashing the divine power.
Yeah.
The other thing is, too, I didn't start with the LHPs daily. I should have started them daily from the very beginning.
Uh,
I messed around for a few months. I was so glad, and so, starting to do that daily is really, really life changing. And really, it doesn't take that long.
no.
I mean, 10 or 15 minutes, you can get through it, And it's totally life changing. But I totally hope that we can get lots and lots of practitioners to do the HMR, the subconscious channeling. Man, I think we could see gigantic changes in our lives, even with long-term. I mean, think of it, 20-year long-term chronic illness. And of course, like I said, I was a sickly kid.
Yeah.
I've had lots and lots of problems. So, turn things around like that for someone that's had something forever and completely, I believe, can be totally turned around. And this is the way to do it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Michael, so much for doing this interview with me. And I want to put out a personal public thanks to you, because you've been a huge help to me throughout this whole endeavor, because I've pretty much been doing this full time since 2016 with no other income, or just I've been selling my books and selling my stuff. I'm going to sell my truck next week, and just trying to keep the ball rolling here as we get wisdom going. And you've been in my corner since day one, and I so appreciate your support. Not only your financial support, but your prayers and your good wishes and your friendship towards me. I really appreciate it. It means so much to me, Michael.
Thank you, Denny. Yeah. You are so welcome. This has changed my life. It has given me purpose, and hope that I didn't have. Yeah. After being sick all those years, right. I lost a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And this has changed my whole life. Running into you and Karl has changed things for me, and I just try to show gratitude and do what I can.
Well, it's appreciated.
You're so welcome. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We're recording this on a Wednesday evening, and I'm going to try to do the edits and get it over to Michael so he can review it. That's still my policy. If I interview somebody, they get to say whether it goes or not. It goes public, and then we'll get it out there for all of you to watch. And I hope Karl likes it too.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
But we'll leave that to the divine realm. We'll let the divine realm decide about who likes it and who doesn't and all that stuff. So, okay. So thanks, Michael, and thanks everybody for joining us. And I'll try to get some more videos out. And sorry for the long hiatus, but I was waiting for this one. I knew this one was going to be special. All right. Bye, everybody.
You're gifted at this. Okay. You're gifted. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.